Hello everybody, I'm Nola and welcome to my channel. If you've been here before, welcome back. And if you're a new subscriber, thank you. I truly appreciate you. Now today I would like to speak to you about something that's deeply personal to me. And perhaps many of you are having the same struggle. And I want to tell you or speak with you about what nobody told me about gray hair or hair that turns white. And a few people have stopped me recently and asked about my hair. In fact, just a couple of days ago, when I was in the mall, several people complimented my hair and asked if I colored it. And some of my family members who haven't seen me in 10 or 11 years or more have also asked me if I've colored it. And the answer is no. This is my natural white hair. And now, before we begin, let me make something very clear. I'm not a hairdresser. I'm not a cosmetologist. I'm not a scientist. I'm simply a 64-year-old woman who has struggled with her hair for a very long time. And so I'm sharing what I learned from living with this bright white hair, and I will share with you how I actually got here. And believe me, I've learned many of these lessons the hard way. As many of you might know, I grew up in South Africa, and in our community, the community that I grew up in and that I'm part of, hair was a serious business. Auntie Mona, this is for you. Coco or Colette, my beautiful cousin, this is for you as well. Now, when I tell you hair was a serious business, my mother and my aunties didn't play. If your hair wasn't looking right, someone was going to tell you. You would hear things like this: Nola, you better keep your hand on your hair. Or if someone's hair was looking particularly rough, the whispers would be, I guess, a comb can't even go through that hair. There was no sugar coating it, and it was simply hair. But for many Black people or mixed race people like myself, you know, it's always been a thing in our communities. I don't want to turn this into anything political. I just want to tell the story. And they noticed everything: how you dressed, how you smelled, your shoes, your handbag. Nothing escaped those aunties and those mothers. And looking back, I can laugh about it now. But it taught me from a young age to pay attention to my appearance and take care of myself. And as a young girl, we didn't have all of the products and the tools people have today. We swirled our hair where I come from. You know, we'd put two rollers or curlers on your crown, and then you'd make a side part, and you would wrap your hair. We would swirl it around, and then we would cover it with a stocking. Those were the nylon stockings that your mother wore or you wore, your sisters wore. Those were coveted. Once they had ladders in them, we cut them up and we used them to put on our heads, and we'd swirl our hair around with it. But if you put the rollers on top, and I think the rollers were, while we wanted the bounce and we wanted the sleekness, we didn't want it so flat, so we put the rollers or the curlers on the top by your crown to give it a little bit of a lift, right? So sometimes for that we would use either a scarf, and if you didn't have a scarf, you would use the panty section of the stockings. And every girl knew how to do it. I promise you, we all knew how to do it. And that was long before YouTube, curling wands, and online tutorials. Back in the day, it was hot combs or iron combs, and then we had those stainless steel things like a barrel where it was electric. Before that, they were actually put on a fire. They were steel, you know. So over the years, I've worn my hair in every way imaginable. Every way imaginable. Relaxed, natural. I've worn weaves, I've worn wigs, I've worn ponytails, I've been the bun auntie, and yes, there was always an emergency wig packed somewhere. If something happened suddenly and I needed to go somewhere and my hair wasn't looking good or right, or I was traveling and couldn't get a hair appointment, perhaps on a cruise ship or in some parts of, Europe, they wouldn't know what to do with my hair. And many people would say, but you have beautiful hair. Why would you wear a weave? Because they weren't the ones sitting in a salon every 2 weeks for that color touch-up. And sometimes practicality wins. Then life changed for me, and after some medical issues and treatments and medications, my hair changed dramatically and eventually grew back completely white. The treatments that I had not only changed the texture of my hair, it also made it impossible for the pigment from the dye to take, or the hair color to take to my hair. And then I moved from Florida to the Netherlands, and suddenly everything changed again with the climate. The water, the products, the availability of hairdressers. And I had a very nasty experience. It's one of the rare nasty experiences that I've had here outside of a work environment, a public nasty experience. I walked into one of the salons, and right when I opened the door, before I could even say hello, a woman shouted from right across the room that they weren't taking any appointments. She never gave me an opportunity to ask, because in America, yes, we have our black salons or African American salons, we have Dominican salons, we have salons that only deal with people with Caucasian hair. But over the years, over the 40 years that I've lived in America, that has evolved. And I've met several Caucasian women that know how to do hair like mine. And chairs are often rented in the salons, and so you'll find people of different nationalities and hues and hair types doing hair. And I think I kind of thought that Europe would be more, what I speak for the Netherlands, would be more advanced. And so I really felt stung by that. And in that moment, as I turned around and walked out, I knew I was on my own. I also did some research, and I realized that I could go to Amsterdam, which is, on a good day, if the traffic's good, about 25 minutes away from where I live, or even into Harlem. But I didn't feel like doing that. But before coming to the Netherlands, if I remember correctly, COVID happened, remember? In 2020, COVID happened, and many of us found ourselves caring for our own hair at home at that time. But I had already shaved my head approximately 7 years ago. And I learned how to wash and dry my own hair. Back then, I was still relaxing my hair every 12 weeks or so. And we just couldn't do anything about it. So I became a bun auntie. So let me get to the nitty-gritty of what I'm trying to say here, or what I'm trying to share with all of us, women and men also, where your hair changes color as you grow older. What I've discovered is that white hair is more porous. At least mine is. It absorbs things. It picks up color from things I never expected, and I've learned this purely by trial and error. Colored oils. I like that argan oil, for example, but some of it has got like a yellowish tinge to it. And when I put that on my hair, it turns my hair that brassy color. Colored shampoos, the purple shampoos and conditioners, darlings, I cannot use those. I get that purple hue in my hair, depending on which way the light hits it, of course. And then the colored conditioners and the colored bonnets. Yes, the colored bonnets. So I've been scrambling around either using white satin pillowcases or grey colored or white colored headbands, which are even harder to come by. Yes, they have them in white, but it's mainly for people that are playing sports or exercising. Tennis players wear them, and that's a little too rough for my hair. It tends to tear and my hair is fragile. So for years, I couldn't understand why my hair sometimes looked dull or beige or yellow. And eventually, I realized that some of the products and the fabrics that I was using were contributing to the problem. And one of the biggest lessons I learned was to pay attention, not only to the ingredients, but also to the color of the products inside of the bottles, because my hair seems to absorb everything. That's why I prefer colorless shampoos and conditioners whenever possible. It either has to be clear or it has to be white. And I think you all know what I mean. And my hair, another thing, my hair personally has never liked alcohol-based products. Even when I was young and my hair was happy and healthy, many of them left my hair dry, flaky, and unhappy. But that doesn't mean that it will do the same thing to you or to everyone else. It simply means that they didn't work for me. And over the years, I have accumulated cabinets full of products that didn't work. Not a cabinet, cabinets. And I suspect that for many of you, it's pretty much the same thing. Every one of them promised beautiful hair. Some delivered nothing except a lighter wallet. One thing I also had to learn is that I don't have one hair type. The front and the nape behaves differently. Some of our communities, we call them the ancestors or the cousins on the front veranda or the back veranda. Ha ha ha. The sides behave differently from the crown. The crown behaves differently from the back. Some sections are curlier, some are straighter, some are more coarse. So I stopped trying to force my hair to be something it wasn't and started paying attention to what it was trying to tell me. And these days, my routine is so much simpler. Every 6 or 7 weeks, I use a mineral removing pre-shampoo treatment to help remove the buildup from hard water, because like Florida, where the water was very hard, and many parts of America, the water's very hard, we've all had standardly water softening systems. The place that I live in here in the Netherlands doesn't have it. And because the place doesn't belong to me and I will be returning home at some point, it doesn't help me to have one installed. So every 6 or 7 weeks, I use this mineral removing pre-shampoo treatment that removes the buildup from the hard water. And as I said, I use a colorless shampoo and conditioner. And occasionally, like once a month or so, I will use 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar to a quart or a liter or more of warm water. And so after I wash my hair gently with no scratching and so on, with long nails, I pour that apple cider vinegar very gently through my hair and kind of massage it into my scalp to remove some of the buildup from the hard water from my scalp. Now, I've learned all of these things through watching a lot of videos and reading a lot of things. There are many wonderful people and hairdressers out there that give really priceless nuggets on how to take care of our hair, but not so many on what to do when your hair turns gray or turns white like mine has. And then I use a moisturizer, moisturizing detangling spray by Avalon. I forget the name of the product. I also recently discovered on Jackie's products for curl definition. That's the only one that I use, and I use a little jojoba oil or jojoba oil, as some of you may say it, on the ends of my hair. I sleep on a satin pillowcase or wear a satin bonnet, preferably white, and I just was recently able to find one. I don't use any heat on my hair. I haven't relaxed my hair in a good 2 years, a little more than 2 years. And my hairdresser back home in America, in Calwood, Florida, Brenda, the owner of Salon Posh, has gotten many a desperate WhatsApp message from my hair saying, Brenda, what do we do? I've learned how to trim my own hair. About 4 weeks ago, I had to cut off 6 inches of my hair because I'd been on a steroid here from an issue with bursitis and the winter and so on. And I had to do that because it started to break on the ends, and I'd comb my hair and there'd be a lot of fluff on the floor. So most importantly, I've spent decades and a lot of money learning how to change my hair. And so I avoid harsh elastics. I learned that a long time ago. Not to wear plain elastic bands. I prefer mine to be wrapped in the same satin that we use for the bonnets and for the pillowcases. And I've learned how to care for my hair. And I think that's one of the gifts that comes with growing older. We stop chasing perfection. We start paying attention. So if you're on your own white hair journey, don't be afraid to experiment. Observe and learn. Pay attention to your own hair, my darlings. Not mine, not your neighbors, not in influences. And most of those influences are so young. What will they really understand? And for me in the Netherlands, everything, all of the labels are in Dutch. So navigating it and trying to find things that I was familiar with from back home in America just became such a challenge. But I didn't let that stop me. I proceeded anyway. So don't come crying to me when you've purchased a burgundy bonnet and your beautiful white hair ends up looking like a glass of iced tea. I've told you that our hair is more porous, and if your hair is white like mine, it doesn't need as much protein or any protein at all, is what I've learned. But this is for myself. I'm not a hairdresser, okay? So experiment with yourself. Be careful of the ingredients in the products. And if you're putting any gels that are yellow, oils that are green, like amla oil, or oils that are colored on your hair, just remember that also changes, and heat also changes. And so what I've started to use, I've been using those long, what do we call them? It's like a sponge curler, and it's wrapped in satin, but it's been impossible to find white ones. So I've got pale pink ones, a little darker pink, and I have a couple of brown ones sitting in my hair box. And because I refuse to use them, I may use them in the back where you cannot see them, and I just wrap my hair. And never wrap your hair like that when it's damp in that satin stuff, because it can grow mold and moldy, and I'm talking about the curlers. Okay, I remember when I was a child and my sisters and my cousins, my sister, I have an older sister and I have a sister that's younger than me. I'm second in line to the throne, I like to say. And then we lost our baby sister almost 6 years ago. I remember my sister and my cousins rolling their hair with fabric. So we've come a long way. There's a lot of products out there. And when my hair started to get this white, it grew out, and tried a lot of things. And I recognize that heat is a major energy of white hair or graying hair. So use your hairdryer on cool and look at some of the products from Aunt Jackie. I don't know which ones will work for you. And if you'd like, I could pin in the comments what it is that I actually use on my hair. And thank you for being here today. It's been such a pleasure to speak with you. And please remember to be kind, because kindness is truly important. In this crazy mixed up world of ours, so many of us, so many of you are dealing with things that you and I know nothing about. So please remember to be kind. Everybody's dealing with something that we have no idea about. If you've stayed this long, won't you consider subscribing, hitting the like button, share this with someone you think may need to learn how to care for their own hair. Maybe they're in a foreign country without access to a lot of the products and the amenities or the services that we are accustomed to. Until the next time, take care of yourself, hydrate yourself, eat properly, go within. All of your answers lie there. I love you all, and bye for now. Aunt Mona, I love you. Coco, there you are. Bye.